Welcome to the worst of the best podcast. You wanted the best. Well, they didn't freaking make it. So here's what you get. From Canada, Ryan and
Jason. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Worst of the Best podcast. I'm your host, and of course, with me today is Jason. It's been a couple of weeks, Jason. I guess we needed some emotional time to recover from the Dead Celebrity episode. Have you recovered? Could you name 5 of them? Could you name 5 right now that was on that list?
Honestly,
you name your worst pick? Could you even remember your worst pick?
I can't.
That's right, because they're just celebrities. Let's be honest. They just come and go in our life. They're nobody. Okay.
They're dead to me.
They're dead. Whoa, touche. I like it. All right. Actually, I'm really excited about this one, Jay. This is going to be a fun discussion today. This is an episode about bold predictions from the past, obviously from history, thus their predictions, that didn't age well. So at the time, people took the information they had, the science they had, or the information they had, the knowledge they had, and people that were not just schlubs like me and you, people in kind of high-thinking places, people that would listen to these types of people, they made bold predictions that didn't necessarily come true, some worse than others. So we're going to give the best bold predictions of history that didn't age well, and then we're going to pick what we think is the one that was really off the mark, kind of the worst, the biggest oof. How's that sound?
The biggest miss?
Yeah, okay, I guess the biggest miss. Okay. So to be fair, Jason, predicting the future is tough, and hindsight always feels like 2020. Still, some of these blunders are so off the mark that you can't help but wonder, what were they thinking? So Jason and I in this list, we're going to dive into 10 bad predictions, not just minor misses or tough call guesses, but wild claims about things that should have been obvious. Sure, we've all been wrong before, but these mistakes are in a league of their own, Jason. So let's take a fun look back at these so-called visionaries of their time. Okay. I'll start with the first one. As per normal, Thomas Edison. Jason, you've heard of Thomas Edison, of course. Celebrated inventor, undeniable genius. But he wasn't immune to making a few off-the-mark predictions. So in 1911, in the Miami metropolis, he was interviewed. He shared his vision of a future dominated by steel. You're like, what do you mean? Well, according to Edison, homes in the 21st century would be entirely furnished with steel, lightweight and inexpensive, making even heavy furniture easy to move. He imagined babies being rocked in steel cradles, families dining on steel tables, and boudoirs adorned with steel furniture disguised as fine wood. What an odd prediction. Why would he think that, maybe? That's the other question.
Well, I would suspect maybe back then steel was like
easy to come by.
Up and coming like manufacturing situation where they're like, maybe the refining of steel became easier and easier and more readily available.
I get, but think about just how many homes there are in the world. The idea that even half the homes are, it's just an odd prediction. I guess obviously the population of the world was smaller back then, and maybe his own idea of just how big the world was or is. I know it's 1911, but still, I guess he's just thinking, oh, I can see every home be made of steel. I guess even back then, homes were built in the 1840s and 50s, so people were living in 1910s, and they were obviously falling apart, dilapidated. Maybe he envisioned that, if you make homes out of steel, they're just going to last forever.
Yeah, it became a product that was more easily manufactured.
Right.
Right. It was like we have these big factories. The Industrial Revolution is, so steel is becoming more available, and clearly is a better resource for building than what they had been using, I would suspect, at least for the homes. I mean, a lot of buildings back then were like all these like big rocks and bricks and stuff, but like the bigger buildings.
Now, he did have another little prediction. This was kind of interesting. Edison also predicted, Jay, the books would be one day printed on leaves of nickel, lightweight and compact enough to fit an entire, as he saw it, an entire library in a single volume. He described a 2-inch thick book containing 40,000 pages, weighing less than a pound and capable of holding the Encyclopedia Britannica. While the nickel part didn't pan out, he wasn't far off. E-readers, like the Kindle, have made portable libraries a reality. Credit where credit's due on that one. So at least he envisioned the idea of compacted books, even back then. That's quite visionary, just even think in those terms.
I don't know anything about, nickel.
I guess it's light and
is it really
strong.
Lightweight? So that's something I'm not familiar with, but obviously he would be more familiar with that. The idea that he could envision printing a book on these leaves, like reduction, right? Like technology is always making something smaller and lighter, smaller and lighter, smaller and lighter. So the idea that he could envision, again, a metal, but
He was really stuck on this metal stuff.
I like to see what his stocks were probably in metal companies.
But also shows you it shows you the thought process of a thinker, of an inventor.
Yeah.
Everybody's always trying to, like you said, how to better the world around him. So that, good for him for thinking in those terms. Yeah, not too bad. I like how he envisioned e-readers at such a time when obviously electricity was barely used by people. So that's really cool. Okay. You got the next one. This one's fun.
Okay. So in 1950, journalist Dorothy Rowe of the Associated Press boldly predicted that by the year 2000, so 25 years ago.
Yeah, I know. I love a lot of these early predictions. 2000 was the big, by the year 2000 type talk. Yeah.
And that's 50 years, right?
Yeah,
1950 to that's 50 years. And that's already 25 years ago.
I know. Here we go. So why does 1950 to 2000 seem like 500 years in the future, but we're only 25 years away from making other predictions like this? You know what I mean? It's I don't know why 25 years ago still seems like last year.
I don't know that. I know year 2000 just seems like a couple of years ago.
Anyway, so what did she predict?
Yeah, her big bold prediction of 50 years in the future. By the year 2000, every woman would stand an imposing 6 feet tall, based on what she called scientific evidence. Rowe claimed advancements in nutrition and healthcare would lead to future generations of women growing to Amazonian heights. Her proportions will be perfect, though Amazonian, Rowe wrote. I'm not quite sure what that means. So, envisioning a society where science had perfected balanced diets to optimize body efficiency and eliminate fat. To her credit, women today are slightly taller on average than in the 1950s. So, thanks to improved prenatal nutrition, medicine, and healthcare. Rowe's vision remains fascinating and inaccurate example of futuristic speculation gone wrong.
Yeah, so she wasn't too off the mark in the sense she recognized at the time of their research and science at the time that through medicine and stuff that we can live longer, grow taller. And that is a scientific fact. It's my understanding too, G, that humans, or men and women, were a little bit bigger, a little bit stronger, and that women have gotten taller,
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm
the average height or whatever that is.
Well, one of my hobbies is just understanding health and nutrition. And it is clear that nutrient deficiency is a major issue as to why we're sick, why children don't grow as tall as they might, why teeth might be crowded in the mouth, and there's more need for orthodontics, et cetera, et cetera. So the idea is somewhat accurate. If you have an undernourished individual, they just can't grow to their full potential. But why she would feel that it's females or anybody in particular.
She may have been a female doctor. That might have just been her study. I don't know Dorothy Rowe, but it sounds like she was really focused on women health, maybe?
Yeah, for sure.
So this next one is interesting, Jason. In 1906, famed composer and conductor John Philip Sousa made a dramatic prediction. He said recorded music would destroy everyone's musical abilities. Now, this is very interesting because what do we have right now with AI? Right now, AI is like recorded music of 1906. People have accused of AI of taking away human, natural human's ability to draw art, want to create art. So what I find interesting is this in 1906 recorded music, the LPs were being made and people could listen to records at home. And he was afraid that because you could listen to music in your home and not create it in your own home and play the music, that people wouldn't now learn how to play instruments. So he felt recorded music would destroy everyone's musical abilities. Writing in The Menace of Mechanical Music, Sousa denounced the phonograph as a threat to musicianship. He accused that fewer people were buying instruments or learning to play because, quote, automatic music devices were replacing them. Sousa warned that recorded music would make the hard work of studying and mastering instruments obsolete, leading to the eventual disappearance of amateurs and the collapse of music education. Quote, it will be simply a question of time when the amateur disappears entirely, along with a host of vocal and instrumental teachers, he declared. While Sousa's doomsday prediction didn't fall out, musicians and music teachers are still very much around. In fact, you could almost argue there's just more. Because maybe he didn't even envision, obviously, the industrial age of just how many instruments are able to be made: drums, guitars, pianos. We have a plethora of music stores. Just like people are playing music on YouTube. I think music is being played by more humans now than ever in the world.
Yeah, I would agree 100%. I mean, there has been an explosion, and of music, and partly it's because people can share it now in a way that they've never been able to share it. So they're more inclined to delve into that hobby, the amateur aspect of music, maybe in hopes to make it big, but the sharing of that hobby. Now, it will be interesting, obviously, with AI, how that will play out. I think it'll be a slower, I think it's going to be a slower decline than what the doomsday people are suggesting AI will do for the arts. Right now, it's just kind of a fun thing. But I think maybe that fad of, I'm going to create something with AI, I'm going to make an art picture with AI. I think that's just kind of a fad thing, and it might feed into the fear of losing out. But
yeah, AI is interesting. I dabble with it very peripherally, very amateurly.
Yes.
Just have fun with it, like just playing with AI. And from what I understand, for example, like I've created pictures, it's an art form in itself. And of course, it depends on the program, but you have to give it certain commands.
Very specific.
So there's still some sort of ability. I know it sounds like, I don't know how to, I understand it's not art in the sense that I am taking a paintbrush and doing it myself. But I would say AI art, because I've seen some AI videos and stuff, like how did they, whoever the creator was, do that? I'm actually impressed in a weird way. I guess what I'm saying is I just separate it from, it's a different form of art because there is a command. Yeah, there you go. You could just say that the zeros and ones in a computer program, though it's not, you would think to yourself, well, computer programming, Ryan, that's not sexy. No, but that actually takes a human skill to create the programs. So I just look at AI as an AI art and AI videos that I've seen that are really kind of fun or cool or funny or neat. You still have to give it the human command. People think you just literally tell an AI video, AI video, make me the best Star Wars film ever. Go. It will be like, what? It won't do it. It will do whatever it thinks you said. Even that simple command, it will pump out something, but it'll be like an acid trip dream. It won't make any sense. You have to give it real commands.
Well, you've probably seen that guy's movie that he made with the Google AI, video AI creator, where it's like a 5-minute video movie. And it literally looks like a movie that's produced in a theater.
Oh, really?
Theater. I think there's a bank robbery in a car chase.
Oh.
But all the different camera angles.
The heist?
So, yeah, the heist.
Let me just play it for our visual audience. The guy's name is Jason Zada.
And all the different camera angles, it literally looks like it's filmed. But he had to give it very, very, very specific instructions.
Yeah, you would have to, because if you don't, it will do what it wants.
Fill in the gaps. It's going to fill in the gaps for you, and it won't make sense. So basically, he's creating a storyboard through text, right? Through a dialogue that he's giving the AI. So you know how a storyboard looks. Like we're all familiar with the old school storyboard, and it's like, here we want this camera angle and this scene, this cut scene. You know what I mean? And like a conversation is going to one actor, then it cuts to the other actor for their dialogue and back and forth. You know, a sword fight, you catch that sword fight from one angle and then changing it to a different angle.
Yeah, there's direction and commands. So that's all the director.
Right. So
yeah.
So you have to do that as a dialogue to the AI engine. Yeah. So that's a whole new skill set. And at first it might seem like that's way more tedious and long and might not, but really it's just your mind and time writing. There's not a film crew. There's not a set. You don't have to pay actors. At the end of the day, this would be a cheaper way of creating a film.
That's what kind of excites me about AI video is what this guy is showing. I'm just going to edit this.
So you're watching it?
So I'll mute the sounds, but for our YouTube watchers or the watch on YouTube, they can see it. But yeah, if you're watching this, you can kind of see the AI-ishness a little bit on the humans, but like Jay was saying,
barely.
But yeah, but the car's driving down the road, and like Jason was saying, you've got different shots. The car drives by, then you got the on the wheel shot, drives by the traffic behind the car. The cop car comes, he's shifting gears, all these things you would see in a standard movie. What's crazy, no one got paid. Like there's no paid actor. And this is what I find exciting. I should say this is when the technology gets better, and we have a lot of creative people, Jason, as you know, in the world who don't have access to the Hollywood nepotism. Like I hate to say it, people that are creative, bright,
right,
and like, oh, you don't know Brad Pitt or you don't know Martin Scorsese. You're like, well, no, but you can't get the script, so to speak, in these people's hands, and then they start, you know what? I'm just going to make the film, and we get to watch it. And again, if it sucks, guess what people do? They're not going to watch it. So, in a fascinating way, I'm fascinated to see what AI creators create, because it's not as simple as saying, oh, create me a car chase with a bank robber. If we did that to an AI video, that's all we said to the video, do you think we'd be getting this right?
Right. So the other thing is you brought up, you can kind of see that it's not truly a person, right? Like the faces are actually quite accurate. It's the hands,
right?
Like that face there, right there. That's pretty accurate. But we watch cartoons. So having something that's not 100% accurate to what we would look at as a person, as if an actor walking down the red carpet doesn't have a ton of makeup and latex fillers and are 90% fake as to what they would actually look like off camera.
Basically, you have an author of a storyline who now has the ability. It's like a book with pictures. Now I have a screenplay with pictures. That picture is created by AI. Yeah, but I still created the story. I still
think of how much dialogue he had to write to create that whole look.
Yeah,
but at the end of the day, it's still cheaper than having actors closing down a set. Having to block traffic.
It'll be interesting. These next 20 years, Jay, we'll be around for. Like we hopefully won't be dead. Knock on wood in 20 years. So these next 20 years will be fast. Even 10. Fine. These next 10 years will be very fascinating. See how fast technology goes in the next 10 years with AI.
But going back to the music though, I think that's different than visual. You might enjoy music like as something in the background that AI made. You're going to be like, oh, that I can tap my toe to this.
Sure.
But there's not that human interaction that, you're not going to go to an AI concert, are you?
I think I'm hopeful that most people are like me and you, Jay, in that I think people generally, if YouTube videos show me anything with the amount of views that people watch, just to watch people cover songs they enjoy, I can't imagine you'll see somebody covering an AI song, if that makes sense. So I think people truly do legitimately enjoy composed music by humans. I can't imagine. No, maybe this is going to be a bold prediction. Here's my bold prediction. When they do a worst of the best episode in 40 years, they'll say Ryan said this. Fine. My bold prediction is that human created music played by humans with instruments made by humans. I would be surprised if that ever dies.
I agree.
Yeah. Now, AI art and movies, ooh, that's a battle that will put it this way. Between the two battles, AI movies will beat AI music first.
See, the thing is, AI can't, as of right now, AI of itself can't make a movie. It still has to get instructions.
Yeah.
So to me, that's the same. It's the same idea as a paintbrush, or me taking. A hobby of mine is taking pictures. I still take the picture. I can edit it to kind of create my own vision of what I took a picture of. You change the contrast or the composition, you crop in a little bit, whatever. You erase the telephone pole that's in the way. It's still, it's a process of art. But music, I feel like it's a little bit different than that. I think why music is so good is because there's more of an intimate interaction with the sound.
I'll die loving it that way. whether the world does or doesn't with me, I'm going to go to my grave enjoying humans creating music for humans the best, the most. Yeah, for sure. I've heard AI music and none of it speaks to me yet. All right.
You mean Axl Rose singing ABBA?
Oh yeah. See, that stuff is right away. You're like, it's a funny thing to listen to. Like I get a kick out of it, but you can still.
That's why it's a fad right now. The way that they're doing, it's a fad type of thing.
Sure. Yeah.
It's just like, oh, it's fun.
Or they got James Hetfield doing a lullaby or something.
Yeah.
Mary had a little limb. Yeah. It's like, okay, all right.
You can only listen to the same. Like that's why comedy music doesn't do anything for me. When people try, it's like,
oh yeah, give it.
Yeah, put that on a repeat. Yeah, like, come on. Anyway,
I'm fat. Okay, all right.
In 1950, Waldemar Kempfert, science editor for the New York Times, envisioned a bizarre future where cleaning your house required nothing more than a hose. Shared his prediction of the world in 2000 again.
Yeah, I think it's just
sharing his prediction of the world in 2000. The time has sped up, right? Because 1950 to they just thought, oh my goodness, we'll never get years there. From now. Yeah, we'll never see it. He painted a picture of a futuristic homes made entirely of synthetic, waterproof materials. Okay, so kind of like Edison, which is all steel. Now he's just doing a home of synthetic, waterproof material.
Yeah, he's the opposite of Edison. He took Edison's idea and turned it on its head. Instead of steel,
oh my goodness,
plastic and waterproof. Yeah.
To illustrate, he invented a character named Jane Dobson, a housewife of the future. Boy, we're in trouble on this one.
I know. I'm like, hey. Oh, I love how he just assumed that. Yeah, that's still a thing. Yeah, the good old housewife. Hey there, George. Over there. Come in for a cup of coffee. Jane's got some coffee and biscuits ready for us.
My housewife Jane is cleaning the house and making coffee.
Yeah.
When Jane Dobson cleans house, she simply turns the hose on everything. He wrote this. This is real. These are quotes.
Yep.
He wrote furniture, upholstery included, rugs, draperies, unscratchable floors, all made of synthetic fabric or waterproof plastic. The water drains to the floor, and Jane finishes by blasting hot air to dry it all. I think him thinking that females are going to be in the kitchen still is hilarious.
But can you imagine the squish, squish sound when you're going through your house?
Layers of latex.
Some people, this is a great fetish. This is
I know that and serial killers. They're like, oh yeah.
Look, I have a few kids in the house still, and doing supper time dishes is a pain in the butt. But can you imagine just getting a big power wash? Koosh.
Fire hydrant at the front of your house. You grab the hose and just.
That's hilarious. Just how would the homes even look, smell, the mildew,
electricity,
the plumbing, the electricity, and the water cost. I mean, the water cost alone. The next one we have here, Jason, is financier. Of course, controversial if you dig in a little bit deep, but you got J.P. Morgan. So when financier J.P. Morgan had Thomas Edison, so it's funny, these two individuals living together at the same timeline. So financier J.P. Morgan hired Thomas Edison to wire his mansion for electric lighting. Did you even know that this was a thing? That Thomas was hired by JP to wire his home for electricity?
Oh, no.
I don't even know if I knew they lived in the same neighborhood, let alone the same timeline. So JP Morgan became the first New Yorker to enjoy the glow of light bulbs instead of candles. That is fascinating.
That is fascinating.
Now, it was a groundbreaking and expensive, which he could afford, move that showcased the promise of electricity. But not everyone was impressed, least of all J.P. Morgan's father. So Junius Morgan called the investment to his son foolish, diminishing electricity as a passing fad. So you talk about fads, Jay, the same way we're saying AI might be a fad with some of the music that we're hearing. J.P. Morgan's dad said the same thing about electricity, dismissing electricity as a passing fad. He warned JP that spending so much on this, quote, newfangled technology was short-sighted and a waste of money.
What's the cost?
When I did the write-up, I didn't write down the cost, but I think when I looked at the source, I think it was $15,000 at that time. It's probably like $150,000 today wiring of the home. So a lot of money to drop, but when you're JP Morgan, it's probably... Yeah.
Well, I'd be curious to see the size of the house that was wired. That
Sure.
actually doesn't sound too bad. I mean, you can see a larger building nowadays and $15,000 for electricity, or $150,000 to wire a home from beginning to end, depending on the house. So Thomas Edison made some good money.
Yeah, I found this part just actually kind of fascinating. Yes, it's funny that JP's dad called it a newfangled technology that was short-sighted and a waste of money.
Yeah.
But I find it just fascinating. JP hired Thomas. I wonder how many of our listeners knew this. If you did, bravo. But I've gone my whole life never knowing that Thomas Edison wired or put together electricity for JP Morgan in his home. And he was the first one in New York to have that done to. That's pretty crazy. Okay.
That is cool.
What do you got for this one?
In 1922, F.E. Smith, a close friend of Winston Churchill and one of the UK's most prominent lawyers, envisioned a future where medical injections could extend human lifespans to a staggering 150 years. Writing about upcoming medical breakthroughs, Smith predicted a world where people live twice as long as today's average expectancy. While medical advancements have certainly improved longevity since Smith's time, 150 years remains a distant and unlikely dream. Smith even acknowledged one potential downside to such long lives: fierce competition for jobs and resources. He speculated, how will the youth of 20 be able to compete in the professions or business against vigorous men still in their prime at 120, with a century of experience on which to draw? And that's an interesting insight and thought.
It is very interesting insight. Yeah, that these are smart businessmen at the time, right? And lawyers. So he's saying, hey, cool. We live longer, but you got this young, upcoming 20, 25-year-old. Can I get a job? You got buddies. I've been doing this for 90 years, kid. You don't know what you're doing. He can still live for another 30 years taking that position.
Yeah. He predicted that this would happen by the year 2030. So we got 5 years to figure it out. Now, a lot of health people, longevity hackers or whatever, they suggest 120 years is about where we should be. It seems we should be living to about 120. If you take everything as an aggregate of you eat your nutrition, you don't get the disease, we should be able to live to about 120. That's what our DNA suggests that we should be able to. 150 does sound like a bit of a stretch. There's a lot of people who do live to be centurions. It is possible. I think it's possible. 120 maybe on the outer edge. If you take it, the environment and the pollutants and plastics and everything else that we... I know. Could you imagine all the nanoplastics or micro...
That was one of the criticisms that they didn't understand at the time that we understand now. Yeah, the nanoplastic. I guess my argument is I'm all for living to 500, whatever, but what's my body like? What's the quality of life?
Well, yeah, of course. His health span to me is way more useful than lifespan. I mean, I'd rather be dead at 65 feeling good and
yeah.
doing something active than dying at 75, but the last 10 years was just bedridden
Yeah,
or
you
whatever.
could be bedridden for 10 years and
miserable.
still alive. Yeah.
Yes.
So,
Yeah.
so it'll be interesting to see. I do know there are, well, they're talking about right now, this is not science fiction. They are working on, and I would suspect by 2030, if not 2040 for sure, they're working on ways, Jay. I don't know how they do it, to upload your consciousness to a cloud. So they're talking about immortality in different ways. Your body won't live forever, but your consciousness will. That's a whole, that's weird.
Do you think 100, we won't say 150, but just the advancements that should be here.
We talked about with the Amazonian woman being a little bit taller, as that one person predicted. I think the same thing's happening with our life. We are living longer just due to the fact of medical care. People aren't dying as soon because prenatal care, birth delivery is better, cancer treatments are better. They even got AIDS kind of figured out to a certain degree. Like, it's crazy how much longer we're just living because medicine and the stuff that is, obviously real and helps us. We'll just keep it non-controversial. So, I have been saved by medicine. You've been saved by medicine, of course. We have loved ones who've been saved by medicine. So, of course, modern day treatments of ailments is huge now. And I can only imagine it's going to get better. And argue AI. I think AI will be a huge medical advantage.
Okay, so yes.
Who cares about art and music? I think AI will look at algorithms, problem solving, and that kind of stuff. That's the accelerant we might see.
Yes, there are issues with the medical, pharmaceutical. Are they overprescribing medications, et cetera, et cetera? But there's also medical procedures that obviously do help as well. So there's this weird kind of cross section of benefits within the medical industry, but there's also areas where you're like, are they just trying to make money off people? Clearly, a lot of the food that you buy at the grocery store, if you choose to, it's basically poison. It's not really food. The ultra high processed foods, your chips and ice cream, et cetera, that isn't going to help you. So if you are going to eat that way, in that particular way, you can't rely on the medical industry to keep you going to 150 if you're eating garbage. But AI will be able to do a better screening. Like, I know that there's new heart scans that AI now looks at, and they can better decipher disease than the humans can. And that will only become more and more fine-tuned as the algorithms and people input the better information.
You can't just say to AI right now, ChatGPT, cure cancer.
But Grok, which is X's AI, you can put in your medical blood work. So you could go get a blood panel done,
what I'm saying,
you put it in,
yeah,
and it will start deciphering the information for you.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to say with the cure cancer. Sorry, was the idea you have to input, like, okay, this is what we have so far. AI, it's actually LLM is what we're referring to. Large language, what's it? Large language models is what it stands for. Yes, but LLM is the language model. That's Grok, ChatGPT, all the other. There's a lot of different models, so to speak. It's just what it is. It like Jason was saying, you give it information, and then it will give you, okay, let me search my data, piece together what you have here. Okay, like I've done that. Like, I want to lose 10 pounds by March, and they'll say, well, and you could say, this is what I'm eating right now. You just give it your weeks. They'll say, oh, I see you're eating XYZ. Why don't you try cutting out ABC? And that should get you, and then do DEF for exercise, and that should get you the 10 pounds. That's how good it is now. You tell it everything. And it's almost getting rid of personal trainers and things like that because you don't.
I was just going to say, it's getting rid of all those calorie counting apps.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You don't need them anymore.
You don't need it anymore. You go, I want to eat 2,000 calories. I'm just throwing out numbers.
You could actually, you could actually take a picture with ChatGPT. What I have the paid program. Maybe even the non-paid program will do this, but I can actually take a picture, Jason, of my fridge and say, here's all the items in my fridge. Make me a meal plan for the week. And it will do that with what you have in your fridge.
That's awesome.
That's how good this stuff is. Yeah. Oh, yeah. You could literally say, I have apples, flour, and cinnamon. It will obviously tell you make a baked apple pie. But that's what I mean. It will tell you what you have in your fridge and all the different menus and items you can eat from that. Yeah. I knew this was going to have some fun discussions. The next one, though. In 1876, go back a little bit further here. Of course, we've heard of Alexander Graham Bell. Jay, you ever heard of that guy?
Well,
he worked tirelessly to perfect the telephone. Of course, William Orton, president of the Western Union, though he wasn't impressed, There's always got to be the naysayer. And this is where it's funny how humans haven't changed. Anytime somebody comes up with a new idea, a newfangled fad, there's always those, nope, that's it. This is the last one. No more inventions. Why are people like that? I think it's just change.
And at the end of the day, who cares?
Yeah.
Why do you have to be like,
yeah.
you don't a new telephone. Okay.
Don't use it then.
An Android.
You're right. Who cares? Then Mr. Orton, don't use the phone. Let him create it. You just don't have to
Turn the channel. Turn the channel.
Exactly. I don't like that TV show.
Have to like it.
I'm going to write to the company, tell them I don't like your TV show. So William Orton, president of Western Union, wasn't impressed, confident the device would never catch on. Orton scoffed at Bell's offer to sell the telephone patent for $100,000. He dismissed the invention as a toy and went on as far to write in a memo, quote, "The idea is idiotic on the face of it. Why would anyone want to use this ungainly device when they can send a written message via telegraph?"
Because then you don't have to write a telegraph. You can actually just vocally talk to people.
And I love how now we're back to telegraphing with texting. I like how we text. We got it gone full.
But obviously, texting is an efficient way.
You know why I love texting? Sometimes it's just like, "Hey, I'll meet you at lunch at 12. Cool." Instead of like, "Hey, what's up? Yeah, so we're going for lunch at 12. Yeah, well, okay, I'll see you. Yeah, okay, all right, yeah. Okay, bye.
Exactly, but also the flip side to texting for me is I'm very slow. I'm not very fast at the texting. My ability to do anything kind of long form, I burn out. So sometimes a conversation is easier, though I don't like talking on the phone.
It depends on what it is. There's times.
Yeah, it depends. I think.
Like, this is taking too much, so then I go to voicemail.
Yes.
And like this, okay. It's actually just easier if I call you. What I love is we have the options. That's
the options.
That's right. Yeah. Let's fast forward a little bit to 2007 and history again repeated this time with the iPhone. Same idea. So when Apple was preparing to revolutionize communication, Microsoft CEO Steve Ballmer publicly mocked the smartphone. You're probably familiar with this. Yeah. He proclaiming, quote, "There's no chance that the iPhone will get any significant market share. No chance," end quote. There you go.
What?
All right. What do you got there, Jay?
In 1946, legendary film producer Dale Zanuck, a powerhouse behind 20th Century Fox, made a bold and hilariously wrong prediction about television. Upset that slightly fewer people were flocking to theaters to see films like How Green Was My Valley and The Grapes of Wrath, Zanuck blamed TV for the dip in attendance. But instead of recognizing television as a rising competitor, he dismissed it outright. Television won't be able to hold onto any market it captures after the first 6 months. Zanuck confidently declared, people will soon tire of staring at a plywood box every night. He said this in 1946?
Yeah. Well, TVs weren't in everyone's homes even then. Like, that was still pretty.
That sounds, I mean, it seems like TV shows. Anyway.
Well, they did the same.
I don't know the history of TV very well because that seems like TV's been around.
Well, yeah, obviously TV now, flat screens. There's no longer a plywood box, as he calls it. But this is interesting. Now, this one, I get kind of what he's saying, because this argument that Mr. Zanuck brought up in 1946 regarding television versus film, we're seeing now with smartphones, ironically, versus in streaming services versus films. So films has always been this sort of Mount Rushmore or Mount Everest of entertainment, long form entertainment. People shorten attention spans with reels and what have you. We have also been shown recently in recent film box office history that when the film is good and when the film is fun, so Oppenheimer, Barbie, Deadpool, Wolverine, just to name a few blockbusters in 2024, those are big dollar movies. So people still enjoy seeing movies on the big screen. When it's an event, what I kind of like is, some films like The Grapes of Wrath, I don't need to see a movie like that on the big screen. I can enjoy it on my streaming service at home. This is my middle ground regarding this is I saw Dune, for example, on the big screen because I knew this is a big screen experience. I loved it on the big screen, the big sound, and it was an event. I really wanted to show my support to this film as an event. But I watched a film just the other day, I was just as happy to see it on the small screen. It wasn't important for me to see it on the big because the cost and time. Like, I still enjoyed it, but that's just the world we live in now, where streaming service is the new TV to film, I think. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree. And also, though, some of these streaming services, Netflix, Amazon Prime, Apple TV, or Apple Plus, or whatever it is, the things that they are making to go onto their streaming services is far superior to a Hollywood movie.
They got to smarten up.
Game of Thrones. I mean, that was every show was literally better than every movie that was ever in the theaters for like 6 years.
I agree 100%. I remember saying that at the time when that show came out. Like, this is like, I was being spoiled. This is like a movie worthy quality. It felt big budget, but they were able to do it on this. Obviously, they're not spending $200 million an episode. So they're able to create this world where that's the one thing that HBO has done, and these streaming services with these high quality, long form storytelling is it has made Hollywood. They've had to pick up their game a little bit. And I think we're starting to see that again.
I don't know if they have, though.
I just know that theater isn't dead. It's funny. But two of my boys went and saw a movie the other day, and I didn't even know this movie was out. Like, I didn't even know this movie existed. It was Mufasa. It was a live action, computer generated live action, whatever, CGI movie of the Lion King's dad when he was younger. It was a prequel to the Lion King. I didn't even know this movie existed.
Yeah, no, either.
And then I went on the Wikipedia. It's like, what? This movie exists? Because Becky was like, oh, they went and saw the Lion King. I'm like, no, that came out like 5 years ago. They did a live action. And she's like, no, it just came out. I'm like, what? So I looked on Wikipedia. But what I'm getting at is this movie alone has almost made $500 million in the box office. So people are still seeing, even movies they didn't even know were out, people are still taking their kids are still going. It's going to be a long time before the box office really does die. So even movies I've never heard of are making money at the box office.
It's surprising that we don't see movie sets and stuff dotted all around everywhere, because the amount of movies, not just movies as in the theater movies, but Netflix and all these other streaming services, they have new shows coming out all the time. The amount of film crews around the world, actors and editors, it is a massive, massive industry.
Yeah.
It just shocks me at the amount of entertainment that can be consumed. It's just shocking. You turn on like, oh, wonder if there's a new show. And they're like, there's a new movie. There's a new series. There's a new, wow, there must be film crews all over the place.
Because there's so much being filmed. Like, where are they?
Where are all these people?
Yeah, that's actually a good point. Well, that's why the world's a simulation, Jay. There is no one being filmed. You're just experiencing a film that was never filmed in your simulation.
I love AI.
All right, we're an AI simulation. All right. Okay, this one's mine.
Yeah.
This one shouldn't be surprising, but this one's surprising to me. At the dawn of the 20th century, again, even those close to Henry Ford doubted the longevity of the automobile, one of the most famous misjudgments came in 1903 when the president, another president of a bank, Michigan Savings Bank, who confidently dismissed cars as a passing trend. Can you imagine, Jason, cars, a passing trend at the time? But when Ford's lawyer, Horace Rackham, sought the banker's advice in investing more into Ford's burgeoning venture, the banker scoffed. Using the waning popularity of bicycles as an example, he warned, the novelty is wearing off. They're losing interest. That's just the way it will be with automobiles. People will get the fever, and later they'll throw them away. The horse is here to stay, he said, but the automobile is only a novelty, a fad. End quote. Now we have more cars than people. Yeah, I love how small these people's worlds were. I almost envy how small their worlds were, that a gentleman truly believed that this newfangled device that this guy was driving around, this horse carriage with wheels without a horse, would be a passing fad one day.
It's hard to think that was a legitimate thought.
Yeah. He thought horses would be here to stay. How would you manage horses for the world's population in America and Canada alone? Like horses to get around? Can you imagine?
Yeah, like you would have
just delivery.
Everybody
Amazon Prime on the horse.
or DoorDash.
I mean, I know the mail postal service was horses. That was the post, but you get what I'm saying. It's just crazy.
A lot of what we're learning is be careful what you say about what's possible in the future.
Yeah.
Because it seems so short-sighted, the lack of vision that certain people had. And I'm not sure why they'd be so bold and to like this guy, like, quote me on this. We have a quote from this banker. And he was so sure of himself.
You got the last one. This one's interesting.
Right. So in 1904, just a year after the Michigan banker dismissed cars as a fad, another hilariously wrong prediction about automobiles emerged, this time from a Paris debate between a physician and a neuroscientist. Their concern? Cars might eventually move too fast for the human brain to handle. As reported by the New York Times, these experts argued that the brain might not be able to safely process the speed of a moving vehicle. It remains to be proved how fast the brain is capable of traveling. If it cannot acquire an 8-mile-per-hour speed, then an auto running at the rate of 80 miles per hour is running without the guidance of the brain.
I get their concern. We scoff and laugh, but they haven't traveled that fast.
They never experienced speeds that quickly.
And now we're kind of talking about how would our brain handle, light speed. So it's normal to wonder what G-force will do to a brain. They had to do studies on G-force. We kind of laugh, but it is kind of funny to think. But they have learned when you do like the NASCAR driving speeds, obviously, Jason, these NASCAR drivers, people's brains and reflexes do operate at a different speeds.
Yeah,
obviously,
100%.
Yeah. So there is a connection between speed and reaction time and computation. Obviously, speed, that's what they probably were thinking is when you're traveling a certain speed, what is the computation time of the brain going to handle information coming at you faster? Cars, moving, trees.
Yeah, your ability to have the reflex to respond to something at such a high rate of speed.
So it's a fair argument, but we were finding that, yes, for the most part, our brains, though, we do comprehend our environment pretty okay at fast speeds, but the connection to reflexes, I guess, is entirely.
Yeah, that's where I'm wondering is our ability to respond physically. Our brains are responding probably much quicker, but their physical ability to respond to the stimulus of a speeding object is much slower.
I wonder who the first tailgater was in Ford's time. Probably a horse and carriage, probably. All right. Okay, so there you go. There's the top 10. Predictions of Thomas Edison regarding steel homes, the death of music because of instruments, Amazonian woman, the hose down the house with the plastic house, electricity was a passing fad, according to JP Morgan's dad, the 150-year lifespan, the telephone in general, then again, the iPhone on top of that, TVs, automobiles, and the human brain's capability to process speed. There's some big zingers here, but I think for me, the biggest oof.
There's only one for me.
Oh, I wonder if it's going to be the same as me. Maybe it's going to be the same as electricity being a passing fad. Because electricity is, of course. I look at it as electricity is everything, everywhere. You don't have any of this manufacturing to create everything else without electricity. That to me is the passing fad. The idea he scoffed at it as a passing fad, or what do you call it? He called it a newfangled technology and a waste of money. I thought that one really glared to me when I did my research. But yeah, Joe, what's your pick for the worst?
I think the prediction of this housewife in a plastic home, everything made of, this just seems so silly.
Well, I'll give you silly. That is the most silly.
To me, it's just like, I don't know, a kindergarten.
No, you're right.
It's like, well, my future is going to look like a house made of plastic. Like,
I agree with you. That one is
imagination. Like, it just seems no electricity in your house. You're spraying water without speaking of electricity.
Oh, yeah. I did.
Like, what are you going to make? I don't know. How are you going to hang anything on the walls?
Consider that. I didn't consider electricity at the outlets in the home. Your coffee maker on the counter. The blow dryer in the bathroom. What? Okay, everyone, it's time to hose down the house, unplug everything, turn off the power breaker. Holy smoke. I didn't even consider the electrical currents in the house.
I can see why somebody go, they don't understand electricity. Like
Sure.
it's so foreign. It's like me trying to understand. Like I remember when cell phones came out, and it's like I do not quite understanding what an app is. I don't understand what the purpose of it. You know, like you're trying to.
I remember saying to myself that apps were silly and ridiculous. I don't get why anyone needs these things. I remember thinking that about apps when they first. I was one of those bold predictors.
Especially because a lot of them were like, oh, let's make fart sounds on an app. Right?
They were. It was. You're right.
It's just like, like it was silly.
Honk.
Yeah, like, oh, checkers on my phone.
They were like that, yeah.
But also, I remember getting a BlackBerry. Remember the BlackBerry phone?
Mm-hmm.
I remember getting a BlackBerry, and the salesman was talking to me about. I'm like, what's the difference between this version and this version? The only difference was one had the capability of Wi-Fi, and the other one was just data. So one was data and Wi-Fi, and one was just data. And I'm like,
you're right.
Why would we need Wi-Fi? There was no Wi-Fi.
Yeah, well, yeah.
There was no Wi-Fi at the time. I didn't even know what Wi-Fi was.
Yeah, that's so weird.
We had no Wi-Fi in our house.
Oh yeah, no. Wi-Fi was like
Wi-Fi was like maybe it was like maybe at a a cafe or something. I'm not even sure where Wi-Fi was.
It wasn't. I don't know when it came around. It's so weird how we transitioned from that. I remember we had dial-up internet, then high-speed internet was cable internet, as they say. And then,
getting an answering machine with the tape.
Oh, yeah.
Remember the answering machine with the tape?
Yeah, people our age have kind of lived through a fun time of life where we got to experience all the old school stuff, but we're young enough to learn the new school stuff.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, that was a fun episode. Great discussions. Remember, in front of every silver lining, there's a cloud. And today for Ryan, it was the newfangled technology of electricity. And for Jason, it was plastic hose down houses.